In the office, the bald-headed boss scolded the employee. People often say everyone has something they're good at, so what exactly are you good at? Perhaps he didn't anticipate the situation of our main character, Jin Hyung. He seemed to be an exception. The story began with him gritting his teeth, enduring the boss's harsh remarks and even getting hit with a pile of documents. Yet he still hurriedly bowed and apologized. Dejectedly, he left the office, carrying his belongings. Jin Hyung, always average in everything, he had been like this since childhood. Both in sports and academics, he was not exceptional. However, there was one thing he received praise for. As he walked home, Jin Hyung's phone unexpectedly rang, and on the screen was a call from someone named Yaoi Sin-e. Jin Hyung's gloomy face suddenly brightened, and he answered cheerfully, "Allo." The voice on the other end replied, "Yeah, it's me." Hearing the voice, Jin Hyung hesitated and exclaimed, "Oh? Yaoi Shin, not Yaoi Min." The caller couldn't help but laugh. "Haha. Busted. We can't fool you, huh?" The person calling Jin Hyun was a pair of twins who looked extremely similar. Yaoi Min happily said into the phone speaker, "Seo Jin Hyung. How are you?" Jin Hyung smiled back and replied, "Yaoi Shin is with you too? I'm doing well." However, Yaoi Min noticed a hint of fatigue in Jin Hyung's voice and asked, "Really? But why does your voice sound like that?" Jin Hyung, not wanting to worry them, reassured, "Oh, it's just because I had to work overtime tonight." Concerned, Yaoi Min questioned, "Are you being bullied by someone?" Jin Hyung denied, "No, it's just that I haven't adjusted to the job yet." On his way, Jin Hyung coincidentally saw a stray cat by the roadside, looking skinny and covered in dirt. Without much thought, he opened a food box and pushed it towards the cat before continuing on his way. Jin Hyung was always a kind person. On the phone, the twins expressed their anger and continued, "If there are bullies, tell us. Because you're too kind, that's why you're having trouble. They don't appreciate your good qualities and underestimate you. They're all just foolish people." Hearing their words, Jin Hyung felt somewhat relieved and replied, "Haha. Thanks. I appreciate your comforting words."
I'm comfortable.
The twins were hoping for Jin Hyung to return home soon, saying, "If you feel tired, just come back anytime. Don't you miss us?" Seo Jin Hyung replied, "It's obvious that you miss us very much." The other end of the line replied, "We too. We miss you very much, Hyun." This made Jin Hyun feel much warmer when he received similar affection. Back in his apartment alone, Jin Hyung opened a soda can, sat at his desk. Those twins are younger siblings who live near his home in the countryside. Since they are identical twins born from the same egg, they are so similar that it's very difficult to tell them apart. Jin Hyun recalled a childhood memory when he used to visit the twins' house to play. The father of the twin siblings wrote the names of each child on their foreheads, which, although amusing to look at, served the practical purpose of making it easier to distinguish between them. However, when Seo Jin Hyung witnessed this scene again, he realized that the names on their faces were incorrect. Their father had mistakenly written their names backward. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh my God, did your dad write those names? But they're written backward." Jin Hyun was the only one able to accurately distinguish between the two siblings. Those around him were amazed at his ability, as in their eyes the twin siblings looked identical, and they couldn't fathom how he managed to get it right. Perhaps because of this, the twin siblings only followed him, and it was only when he was with them that he truly felt happy and comfortable. It was the only time in his life that he received so much praise. However, his ability to distinguish between the twin siblings could not be added to his official resume as a skill relevant to his position. After finishing a bottle of water and sitting in a daze in front of the computer screen, Seo Jin Hyung thought, "Regardless, it's been a while since I went back to my hometown. Maybe I should go back once to change my mood." Without much hesitation, he prepared and packed his things for a trip back to the countryside. As he sat on the sleeping bus, Jin Hyung suddenly had a strange dream. In the dream, he saw himself lying with barely any clothes, and suddenly, green eyes with the upright gaze of a wild animal appeared, looking at the prey. Two large snakes coiled around each other and then slithered around him. The sensation was so real that it made him feel frightened. In the dream, he shouted, "No! If this continues, I'll be eaten." Suddenly, the phone rang with a ding-dong, ding-dong. The message notification sound woke Jin Hyung from the nightmare, bringing him back to reality. Jin Hyung was now on the bus heading home, and upon waking up, he smiled and thought, "I don't know why I suddenly had such a vivid dream." Interestingly, when he looked at his message app, Jin Hyung was startled to find over 300 chat notifications. Opening them, he realized that the spam bombardment was from the twins eagerly awaiting his arrival at hometown. They bombarded him with questions and greetings. "Hyun, when are you coming? We're waiting. Are you on your way? We really want to meet you soon. Have you started the journey? When will you arrive?" The constant ding-dong sound of message notifications continued. When Seo Jin Hyung got off the bus, he had a chance to reply to the text message. He just picked up his phone and wrote the message, "I just got off the bus." He heard a loud call, "Seo Jin Hyung," from a distance. Before Jin Hyung could react, the twin brothers rushed towards him like missiles, hugging him tightly and almost causing him to fall backward. The twins exclaimed, "Oh, hey, we missed you so much. Welcome back. It's been years, hasn't it? You haven't changed at all." A person tightened their grip around the waist and leaned in, whispering into Jin Hyung's ear, causing his cheeks to blush shyly. Jin Hyung quickly pulled away, coughing, suffocating. "It's been a while since I've seen you all. It's really delightful." The two brothers finally let go of Jin Hyung, awkwardly apologizing. We're sorry, Hyung." Seo Jin Hyung was overjoyed to meet them again, and they all exclaimed, "Yeah, we missed you so much." Jin Hyung didn't forget to take out the prepared gifts from his bag and hand them to each person. Despite growing up, they still looked alike in their faces, figures, and even clothing. Jin Hyung said, "That's right, I got gifts for you all. This one is for Yaoi Min, and this one is for Yaoi Shin." Both of them seemed to really like the gifts, expressing their gratitude. Seo Jin Hyung carefully observed the twins in front of him. Initially, he was surprised that the little babies who used to cling to him were much older now, grown into tall young men, still as straightforward and bright as ever. Yaoi Shin happily suggested, "Let's go to the market and then head home. Okay?" Yaoi Min quickly added, "I'll cook something delicious for Seo Jin Hyung." Jin Hyung looked surprised and asked, "Yaoi Min, you can cook?" Suddenly, someone called out loudly, "Seo Jin? Wow, is it really Seo Jin?" Jin Hyung turned to see a girl with her hair tied back, approaching him and waving with a friendly smile. Jin Hyung recognized her and hesitated. "Oh, Min-yi?" The girl ran over, smiling. "That's right. It's been so long since I saw you. What brings you here?" Jin Hyung was still puzzled about how to explain when she asked again. "After transferring, why didn't you come back?" In contrast to Minji's warmth, the Yaoi Shin brothers showed an unwelcoming expression, blocking her from approaching Seo Jin Hyung and saying, "Minji Nuna, don't you see us? It's been a while." Minji hesitated and said, "Oh, well." Jin Hyung was surprised. "Do they know Minji too?" They shrugged and replied, "It's because this place is small. Everyone here is like neighbors." However, when Minji saw the Yaoi Shin twins, her face changed, and she stammered, I have to go." Then she turned and ran away as if avoiding something, leaving Jin Hyung standing there, confused and calling out, Min-yi?" The Yaoi Shin brothers reassured Jin Hyung. "Forget about her. She probably has urgent business." Nevertheless, Jin Hyung still felt uneasy and said, "Maybe I should ask what's going on?" Yaoi Shin frowned and asked, "Are you worried about her, huh?" Jin Hyung replied, "Not to the point of worrying, but I don't know why I noticed. Am I being too sensitive?" The pair of brothers next to him were juggling with each other, both leaning close to him and pouring comforting words. "Don't think too much. There's nothing special. Just relax and rest. You came here to enjoy time with us." Quickly, he regained his composure, turned to the twins and apologized. Sorry for making you concerned. We'll go now. In Jin Hyung's mind, a thought crossed. Indeed, I came here to change my mood. I need to rest well to return to work diligently. The three of them laughed and went to the market, leaving the twins to cook dinner. The twins, in front of Jin Hyung, were still as friendly as in the past. Jin Hyung silently thought, this is truly a joyful and peaceful time, just like in the old days. It's been so long since I could laugh and joke like this. In a blink of an eye, it was time for bed. However, Seo Jin Hyung found himself in a daze. Awakened by the sensation of us, let's be happy together. Since they were still young, when the three of them were playing together, Jin Hyung once gently kissed Yaoi Shin on the forehead. At that time, the two kids were still so young that they asked curiously, what did you just do, Hyun? Jin Hyung gently explained, that was a light kiss. Yaoi Shin asked, why? Jin Hyung happily replied, well, because I like Yaoi Shin. The two siblings continued their innocent questions. What is liking? Does it involve kissing lightly? These questions made Jin Hyung start to feel awkward, his face turning red, and he answered, yes, liking. I hope you both will be happy. Jin Hyung, at that moment, was worried, thinking, could it be that they don't like it? But then, they both surrounded him and demanded more kisses. The three of them remained peacefully together until now. Jin Hyung suddenly woke up and sat up in bed. Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min were still sleeping beside him. Jin Hyung felt confused and blushed, thinking, did they really say they liked me yesterday? Is that why they are doing this now? Early in the morning, Jin Hyung quickly changed his clothes and rushed outside, thinking, I have to go home. He kept running without knowing where he was going. His steps quick as if trying to escape, tears of frustration rolling down his face uncontrollably. While running, Jin Hyung kept blaming, this is too much. I never expected to be the only one here thinking that the three of us are close. Those twins used to be the beloved younger siblings, truly close, but just last night, I was delighted to see them cooking for me in the kitchen. Then Jin Hyung recalled the dinner from yesterday, where he happily said to Yaoi Min and Yaoi Shin, all the dishes are my favorites, right? Did you intentionally make them because of me? Thank you. He returned to the thoughts flowing in his mind. But only after one night, everything went out of control. Jin Hyung stopped, standing alone on the green grass, burdened with numerous questions. Why did it happen like this? His troubled mind didn't notice the raindrops appearing on the ground. Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min also realized that Jin Hyung was not in the house. Yaoi Shin turned to Yaoi Min, asking, why did he go out? He left early in the morning. Where did he go? Yaoi Min replied, anyway, he will be back. He doesn't know that, in the end, only we can make him happy. Yaoi Shin said, I hope he doesn't come back too late. We're cooking the dish he likes, and it would be great if he came back before the meal. They continued preparing lunch in the kitchen without worrying. The two of them thought that Jin Hyung was temporarily unable to accept what had happened. However, contrary to their plan, Jin Hyung had not returned even as the sun cast its shadows. Suddenly, a thunderstorm struck, and heavy rain began to pour. Jin Hyung found himself lost in the middle of the forest, not knowing how to get back. Worried and thinking, what should I do? I've lost my way. If I take the main road, they might follow me, so I went into the forest. Now I don't know whether to go down or up. Jin Hyung checked his phone, but the battery was dead. Alone in the vast field, he couldn't seek help from anyone, just sitting against a rock, cold from the soaked rain, scared of the darkening sky, and hungry. Jin Hyung pitied himself, thinking, I'm just a fool who can't find his way down the mountain. In times like this, Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min usually comfort me. Suddenly, in front of him, there were rustling sounds in the grass. Jin Hyung noticed it, and a glimmer of hope arose, expecting the twin brothers to be there to guide him home. However, contrary to his expectations, it was a police officer shining a flashlight on Jin Hyung, asking, who's over there? Jin Hyung shielded his eyes from the light and thought, strange. I found help. But why do I feel disappointed as if I haven't met the person I've been waiting for? Am I feeling relieved or disappointed? Why can't I understand my own emotions? The policeman drove Jin Hyung back. On the way he kept saying thank you, AAA. Luckily you were on patrol. I got lost. I didn't know what to do until it got dark. Thank you very much. The policeman glanced behind him at Jin Hyung. He finally relaxed and leaned back in the chair to rest. In Jin Hyung's mind, he thought, now I just need to get home, take a shower and go to sleep, forget everything. But then something happened that made Jin Hyung uneasy. He continued to think, maybe forget it. Can it end? More than family and friends, only Yaoi Min and Yaoi Shin understand me. Now if I choose to leave the two brothers, maybe later. Jin Hyung was absent-minded, not realizing that the car had stopped long ago. The police officer urged, get off. What are you waiting for? Jin Hyung jumped out of the car. Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min were already waiting at the door with smiles, saying, welcome back. You're so late. Before Jin Hyung could react, Yaoi Min grabbed his hand, pulled him closer, and planted a kiss on his lips, saying, I missed you. Jin Hyung blushed, thinking, I didn't expect someone else to be watching, and Yaoi Min is so comfortable. The police officer was startled, suddenly becoming a bystander. Yaoi Shin approached the officer and took out an envelope from his pocket, handing it to him, saying, consider it a thank you gift. You've been very helpful. Please take this. In the midst of the confused sounds, the police officer hurriedly accepted and said, thank you. Please take care. Jin Hyung was still bewildered by the unusual events, thinking, I just got back, and I'm already wearing the bracelet of these twin brothers again. What is happening? Can I not escape? Jin Hyung was forcefully dragged all the way into the house and the door was slammed shut before he could react. He continued to resist, struggling and protesting. Let go. What's the matter? I'm back, you know? Hearing this, Yaoi Shin released his grip on Jin Hyung, starting an interrogation. Where are you planning to go? Jin Hyung, feeling confused, replied, I want to go home. Yaoi Shin asked further, how are you planning to go? At this point, Jin Hyung found it difficult to answer that, because, apart from the house of the twins, Jin Hyung didn't know which way to go. The two brothers scolded him in unison. Hyun! Yaoi Shin crossed his arms and said, if you go to the train station, it'll be the same. Yaoi Min added, do you plan to go without knowing how to get down the mountain? And then silently thought, that's the charm of him. Yaoi Shin said, the police in this village are all good people. If someone is lost, they will guide them home. The twins then spoke in unison. Right now, this place is your home. Having just reunited, Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min had clung tightly to Jin Hyung. After eating foods that looked like freshly cooked dishes, they advised, you seem tired today, so rest well. However, that night, Jin Hyung lay on the bed quietly for a while, unable to sleep peacefully. Rolling over, turning back and forth, he pondered. Are they doing all these things because they like me? What do they expect from me? Not taking action makes me even more uneasy. But after a while, Jin Hyung fell asleep, until he once again felt someone touching his body, causing Jin Hyung to wake up. Jin Hyung thought, are they taking advantage of me while I sleep? Jin Hyung couldn't help but softly say, Yaoi Min, stop. At this moment, Jin Hyung, even without opening his eyes, knew it was Yaoi Min, upon hearing Jin Hyung call his name, unexpectedly paused for a moment, then leaned down to kiss Jin Hyung on the cheek and joyfully said, don't stop. More. Call me more. Call my name again. Jin Hyung didn't expect Yaoi Min to suddenly become even more excited, and he could only resist weakly. Yaoi Min, looking at Jin Hyung with joy, asked, how did you know it was me? Jin Hyung, unsure how to explain, hesitated and replied, well, I just knew. Surprisingly, this made Yaoi Min even more excited, and he cheerfully exclaimed, I really like it. Call my name again. In Jin Hyung's mind, the thought emerged, no. If this continues, I might get caught up again. Even though it's only Yaoi Min now, it's still. When thinking about being alone with Yaoi Min, Jin Hyung suddenly came up with an idea. It seems feasible. Convincing both twins will be difficult, but if I try talking when there's only one person, he might reconsider. So, Jin Hyung got up and said to Yaoi Min earnestly, Yaoi Min, help me, I want to go home. If you help me, I will treat you well, forget about that time, and keep it a secret between you and me. Only you and me. However, before Jin Hyung could finish speaking, he saw Yaoi Min covering his mouth and laughing. Perplexed, he asked, Why? Why are you laughing? Yaoi Min replied with a mysterious smile. Well, that's not a secret anymore. At that moment, Yaoi Shin pushed the door and entered, sounding slightly angry voice. This is too much. Hyun, am I the only one being left out? Yaoi Shin also quickly approached, embracing Jin Hyung tightly. Jin Hyung, feeling confused, asked, Yaoi Shin, did you hear it? Yaoi Shin nodded, admitting, Yeah, I heard it. You told me directly. Why do you keep planning to go out? What's the point of going out like this? Everything you want is here. Clearly intending to have a serious conversation, Jin Hyung felt annoyed when the twins didn't take it seriously. So he angry, cruelly throwing Yaoi Shin's hand away and pushing it straight towards Yaoi Min. Why are you both doing this to me? Now I don't understand both of you anymore. The twins looked at Jin Hyung in surprise, not expecting him to be genuinely angry. Within the realm of twin siblings, occurrences like these are not uncommon. If one experiences pain, the other feels it as well. Despite being separated at an early age and growing up unaware of each other's existence, they lead parallel lives. Take, for instance, the case of the twins Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min. When their grandfather first laid eyes on them, he kept murmuring, Born wrong. There should have been only one born wrong. Their unique characteristic lies in their ability to share emotions or thoughts, a power beyond their control. An illustrative incident from their childhood occurred when Yaoi Min sat drawing during a kindergarten break. The teacher gently approached, saying, Yaoi Min, it's time to play outside. You can draw later. Okay? Yaoi Min obediently agreed, Yes, ma'am, and headed outside to play. Interestingly, simultaneously, in a different classroom, Yaoi Shin in art class, feeling self-conscious, ran outside ahead of his teacher and classmates' surprise. Coping with such unexpected behaviors proves challenging for the twins. Comments from those around them, like, it's easy to mistake the two of them, or other twin children don't look alike, do they? Or Yaoi Shin once pretended to be Yaoi Min and sat in the class, but the kid was indeed Yaoi Shin, right? Become part of their daily encounters. Additionally, they face rejection from peers and are subject to constant bullying by children of the same age. During these challenging times, Jin Hyung entered their lives, bringing a sense of warmth and familiarity. When Jin Hyung asked his older brother, Can I go to the playground? His brother coldly replied, Try going. If you get lost again, I'll be scolded alone. It was precisely at that moment that Jin Hyung noticed the two lost children by the roadside, marking the commencement of their fateful encounter. The twins couldn't fathom how someone could accurately distinguish between them. They decided to inquire of Jin Hyung, Why can you tell us apart? Jin Hyung responded with delight, Look, Yaoi Min's fingerprint is round, right? Also, when Yaoi Shin blinks, he blinks twice. Surprised, Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min asked alternately, How do you know that? How can Jin Hyung pay attention to such small details? Jin Hyung candidly admitted, Well, it's the first time I've realized that I can observe so closely. Now, I just need to glance and know immediately. Yaoi Shin gazed at Jin Hyung affectionately and asked, Why do you like us so much? Jin Hyung answered sincerely, Even I can't explain it temporarily. I just know that I like you. Both of you are cute in different ways. This marked the beginning of a bond that transcended their unique twin connection. As the twins and Jin Hyung revisited the realm of reality from the cocoon of cherished memories, The nostalgic embrace with Jin Hyung enveloped them, reminiscent of the carefree days of childhood. Yaoi Min, his voice filled with sincerity, expressed, "Encountering you is the first instance we truly felt at ease with ourselves. How could Yaoi Shin and I not hold a deep fondness for you?" These profound words, laden with genuine emotion, melted away any lingering traces of anger within Jin Hyung. In response, Jin Hyung extended his arms, enveloping Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min with a warm embrace, graciously acknowledging and welcoming the depth of their affection. This marked not just a rekindling of an old connection but the forging of a stronger bond that transcended time and space. In this moment, the twins directed their happy smiles toward Jin Hyung and uttered words that resonated with profound sincerity. "For us, besides you, no one else matters." A peculiar and heartwarming emotion swirled within Jin Hyung's heart, and he thought to himself, "These kids really need me, knowing that, I don't understand why I don't want to reject them anymore." The next morning, when Jin Hyung expressed his intention to return to the city, the twin siblings couldn't hide their disappointment and sadness. They voiced their sentiments. "Do you have to go to the company?" "You don't have to go." Then Yaoi Min handed a ripe red strawberry to Jin Hyung. Jin Hyung opened his mouth to eat the strawberry that Yaoi Min handed him and said, "What are you talking about? I have to go to work, but I'll come visit often." Despite Jin Hyung's assurances, the twins remained skeptical of these promises, reproaching, "When we were little, you said the same," and eventually disappeared for years. Jin Hyung vaguely thought, Did I really say that before?" Immediately, the twins approached, advising Jin Hyung, "Anyway, your superiors are already angry. We know everything about your job, so we've already taken care of it all." While Jin Hyung hesitated and asked, "So, is that okay?" The twin brothers continuously poured sweet words to persuade him. "Is there anything that can't be done? Your current job doesn't suit you. You don't need to do those things. Do something you're good at." Curious, Jin Hyung pointed to himself and asked, "What am I good at?" Without letting Jin Hyung ponder too much about what he excelled at, the twins forcefully dragged him into a room, blindfolded him with fabric, and engaged in another round of activities. Jin Hyung could only despairingly exclaim, "No, it's impossible. I can't do this." Yaoi Shin smirked and said, "Why not? You're very good at it. Just do it like the other days. It's simple." From that day on, every day thereafter was similar, with the twin siblings taking turns going out occasionally, ensuring one of them always stayed close to Jin Hyung. Sometimes Jin Hyung wondered, why don't they go out to work? For example, today Yaoi Min spent the day playing the guitar with him. Curious, Jin Hyung inquired, "Did you go directly to learn the guitar because you wanted to teach me?" Yaoi Min casually replied, "Yes. Didn't you say you wanted to learn to play the guitar before?" Grateful for Yaoi Min's consideration, Jin Hyung exclaimed, "Wow, that was so many years ago, and you still remember." "Thank you." Yaoi Min smiled and said, "Yeah, but your fingers look so enticing." Jin Hyung, looking surprised, asked, "Really?" After that, instead of practicing the guitar, they shifted to another physical activity together. The days Jin Hyung spent at the house of the twins Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min were the same days. Wherever they were, whatever the time, even when the three of them were walking together if inspiration struck, they were ready to engage in various activities immediately. After days of vigorous physical activities, Jin Hyung found himself powerless to say anything. He lay face down on the bed, thinking, "Every day is filled with ambitious activities. It feels like I'm..." However, Jin Hyung didn't complain about it. He got up with a determined look, thinking, "No, for Yaoi Min and Yaoi Shin, I'm undoubtedly important, so I have to stay with them." Simultaneously, a nagging concern surfaced in Jin Hyung's mind. He needed to find out more about his job at the company and said, "Even if they've taken the initiative to do these things, I still need to directly find out about my job at the company." With that in mind, Jin Hyung took out his phone and dialed the number of his supervisor, Mr. Kim. When Mr. Kim heard Jin Hyung's call, he seemed surprised mixed with concern. and exclaimed, "Oh, Co Jean, what's going on? Is your body okay? You had a sudden illness, and I was really worried." The director said to let it go, so everyone stopped talking about it. But right after you were scolded that much by Deputy Park, Deputy Park also had a car accident and ended up in the hospital. Since then, you also haven't appeared. Jin Hyung, who was focused on Deputy Park's situation, suddenly had his phone snatched away by Yaoi Shin from behind. Yaoi Shin asked, "Who are you calling?" Jin Hyung turned around in surprise and said, "Yaoi Shin." Yaoi Shin used one hand to crush Jin Hyung's phone right in front of him, then calmly said, "This is unnecessary." The phone was shattered and unusable. Jin Hyung, in shock, grabbed Yaoi Shin's hand and exclaimed loudly, "Hey, what are you doing?" Yaoi Shin thought Jin Hyung regretted the broken phone, but his expression showed no remorse. He said, "I'm sorry, but do you really need a phone now?" However, Jin Hyung, with irritation, said, "Right now, that's the issue? Your hand is bleeding." It turned out that while crushing the phone, Yaoi Shin's hand was pierced by the shards, and blood was flowing. What worried Jin Hyung wasn't the phone but Yaoi Shin. Yaoi Shin seemed to fall deeper into a pit, feeling trapped. He embraced Jin Hyung even more affectionately and whimpered, "I like you too much." While Jin Hyung was still concerned about Yaoi Shin's injury, he struggled out of Yaoi Shin's embrace and said angrily, "Let go! Let go! You quickly treat the injury." The next day, when Jin Hyung woke up, he found a note left by the twin siblings on the table. It read, "Both of us went out to work today, and we left food in the kitchen for you. We'll be back soon." Intrigued by their mysterious jobs, Jin Hyung thought to himself, if both of them are out, something must have happened. What are they doing at work? Although they only revealed that the job earns a lot of money and doesn't seem too strenuous, there seems to be something that makes Jin Hyung uneasy. That evening, the doorbell finally rang. Jin Hyung eagerly ran out to open the door, anticipating the return of the twins. He cheerfully exclaimed, "Welcome back. I haven't." However, when Jin Hyung opened the door, expecting to see the familiar faces of Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min, a wave of confusion and surprise washed over him when he was met with the imposing figure of a tall police officer instead. The policeman stood stoically, head bowed, and a palpable tension lingered in the air along with the faint scent of alcohol. A chill ran down Jin Hyung's spine as the policeman, without uttering a word, fixated his gaze on him. The uneasy silence persisted until Jin Hyung, unable to bear the suspense any longer, nervously inquired, "Oh, what's going on?" When Jin Hyung opened the door, expecting to see the familiar faces of Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min, a wave of confusion and surprise washed over him when he was met with the imposing figure of a tall police officer instead. The policeman stood stoically, head bowed, and a palpable tension lingered in the air along with the faint scent of alcohol. A chill ran down Jin Hyung's spine as the policeman, without uttering a word, fixated his gaze on him. The uneasy silence persisted until Jin Hyung, unable to bear the suspense any longer, nervously inquired, "Oh, what's going on?" Little did Jin Hyung know that this encounter would escalate into a nightmarish ordeal fueled by the officer's intoxicated whims. It seems that due to the stimulation of alcohol, the police officer rushed to engage in play tricks on with Jin Hyung, causing him extreme fear. Jin Hyung, terrified and helpless, shouted loudly, "Why are you doing this?" The officer not only behaved violently but also humiliated Jin Hyung with very harsh words, saying, "You! Why is there such a cowardly man like you?" "Ha!" Jin Hyung, confused and unaware of what was happening to him, pleaded in fear, "Why are you doing this?" The police officer continued to insult Jin Hyung, saying, "You sell yourself to gangsters in order to survive, so you like it a lot, right? Ha!" Due to Jin Hyung's strength being so weak, Jin Hyung couldn't resist a policeman who was much stronger than him. He could only desperately plead, Hick, please let me go." However, the police officer shamelessly responded, "It was you who seduced me first. Jin Hyung was stunned and stared at that despicable guy. In the midst of the torment, fortunately, the timely arrival of Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min provided a glimmer of hope. Yaoi Min, in a fit of rage, brutally beat the police officer, unleashing a torrent of vicious blows. Yaoi Shin, on the other hand, hurriedly approached to Jin Hyung's side, offering support and reassurance amidst the chaos with concern. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" Jin Hyung still couldn't stop panicking and looked at the policeman who was being beaten, and said, But shouldn't I have stopped it? Doing that would have killed him." The crime of touching Jin Hyung should have been a heinous crime that could not be ignored, but Yaoi Min, originally intending to teach the rogue policeman a lesson, stopped and responded, "What? If you want, then..." Before he finished speaking, Yaoi Min dragged the officer outside. Jin Hyung, still worried, thought, "Will there be any major repercussions?" The police officer, despite being dragged outside, continued to curse Jin Hyung loudly. The relentless curses from the officer echoed in his mind, leaving an indelible mark on his psyche. "Selling yourself to gangsters, this despicable guy." These words made Jin Hyung reflect. Those words brought me back to my senses. That evening, as the rain began to pour, Jin Hyung left the house alone, wearing a raincoat, and left his house. Jin Hyung thought, "Anyway, if it weren't for this, I wouldn't know that the two brothers would do such a thing. If I'm being honest, it's true that being here makes me feel more comfortable both physically and mentally than working at the company. Although I can't control what happens with Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min, on the other hand, my mood is very happy." With these thoughts, Jin Hyung walked on a forest road in the dark until he reached a high cliff. Jin Hyung had decided, "I can't live like this anymore." However, when he looked around, he saw a barrier of rocks blocking the way. Jin Hyung realized he had taken the wrong path again. A sense of confusion and helplessness made his earlier determination to be blown away with the wind. Jin Hyung absent-mindedly thought, "I'm really just like that." Amidst the downpour, an umbrella appeared, providing shelter from the rain for Jin Hyung. A familiar voice said, "Why are you standing in the rain?" The twins had caught up with Jin Hyung. Jin Hyung, still in shock, suddenly jumped up and gasped, asking, "Why? Why are you here?" But the twins seemed calm, saying, "What's wrong? We've been following you the whole time. You're feeling cold, right? Let's go back." However, Jin Hyung didn't follow their words and continued to move backwards, ignoring the danger behind him, a steep cliff. Yaoi Shin noticed Jin Hyung's distance and trembling demeanor, disappointedly dropped the umbrella and said, "Hey, are you afraid of us?" Jin Hyung, flustered, replied, "Well, that." The twin brothers took turns saying, "It's strange. We've treated you well, so what are you afraid of? Have we caused you any pain?" Jin Hyung, agitated, shouted, "That's not all. The eyes and attention of others, and everything relying on you too, make me uneasy." The twin brothers, losing patience, worried that Jin Hyung might do something reckless, quickly reached out to comfort him, saying, "Stop talking about that. It's dangerous here." But Jin Hyung insisted, "I don't like it. I won't go with you." The twin brothers then tried to persuade Jin Hyung, "If you come back, what will change? We genuinely care about you. That place will only bring you harm. In your family, you're looked down upon. Superiors scold you for trivial matters." Hearing this, Jin Hyung was startled and interrupted the twin brothers, questioning, "Superiors? How do you know about that?" At that moment, Jin Hyung remembered Mr. Kim's previous words, "But right after you were scolded that much by Deputy Park also had a car accident and ended up in the hospital. Since then, you also haven't appeared." Terrifying speculations arose in Jin Hyung's mind, and he exclaimed, "Could it be?" A loud thunderclap struck the mountain. Bang! Bang! Setting the stage for a tragic turn of events. The sound was as intense as the echo in Jin Hyung's heart right now. Jin Hyung slipped and fell backward towards the deep ravine. The twin brothers rushed to grab Jin Hyung's hand before he fell. However, The flowing rainwater made Jin Hyung's hand become slippery, and he slipped away. Jin Hyung fell from the high cliff and cried out in desperation of the two brothers Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min Hyun. No.
No.
As the crimson mixture of blood and rainwater extended its reach over the ground, Jin Hyung found himself entwined in a dream where two identical snakes slithered through surreal landscapes. A broken tree, due to misguided planting, stood as a poignant symbol amid the dreamlike surroundings. In the distance, peculiar and imperfect forms leaned against each other, creating a mesmerizing tableau of serene chaos. The scene unfolded with an eerie tranquility, leaving an indelible impression on Jin Hyung's subconscious. Some time later, Jin Hyung started working as a cashier in a convenience store and coincidentally met Min-ji, the neighbor, coming to buy groceries. Seeing him, Min-ji was extremely surprised and joyfully exclaimed, "Oh, Seo Jin, that time you went back to your hometown for good? What are you doing here?" Jin Hyung only briefly explained, it's just natural. Anyway, it's nice to see you." Min-ji lowered her voice, covering her mouth, and said as if afraid of being overheard, "Oh, but there are no twins Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min here, right? I couldn't say this to you before, and leaving like that made me worried." Min-ji then told Jin Hyung about the terrifying rumors surrounding the twin brothers Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min that Jin Hyung didn't know about them, such as they are individuals with the authority of a fake religion, that even those with high-ranking officials often visit, and even use all means to achieve their goals. If it were before, Jin Hyung would probably tremble because of this story. But right now, hearing such a story, Jin Hyung, at present, had no special thoughts, not to the point of being amazed. After working as a cashier shift at a convenience store, Jin Hyung visited the hospital. In the hospital room were two brothers, Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min, who were in a coma and had not yet woken up. At that moment, Jin Hyung's only concern was for the two of them to wake up safe and sound, regardless of other issues, no matter what happened. After a considerable duration, the doctors brought Jin Hyung the heartening news of the successful completion of the surgery, with the twins showing remarkable signs of recovery. However, Jin Hyung's apprehension persisted as Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min remained in an unconscious state. Since that fateful rainy day, things have remained the same. On that fateful night, in the pouring rain and darkness, Jin Hyung woke up abruptly on the cold ground and discovered Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min lying unconscious beside him, both bleeding profusely. Startled, Jin Hyung called out loudly, "Yaoi Shin, Yaoi Min." Trying to recall what had happened, he remembered, at the moment of falling and losing consciousness, "I felt as if something protected me. Could it be?" Unable to accept this, he rushed to the side of the twins, shouting, "Yaoi Min, Yaoi Shin. No, this can't be. Wake up." Fortunately, both Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min were promptly taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. Now, Jin Hyung sat watching his dearest ones still in a comatose state, feeling like a fool and silently promising, "The only ones who held on to me when I was little were Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min, but because I was swayed by the words of others, so it led to this. I promise not to doubt them anymore." With these thoughts, Jin Hyung approached the bedside of the twins and prayed, "Please, open your eyes now." Standing next to the hospital bed and reaching out to touch Yaoi Shin's face, Jin Hyung suddenly discovered that the corner of Yaoi Shin's closed eyes moved slightly. Jin Hyung was so surprised that he quickly ran away and said again in a loud voice for Yaoi Shin to hear, "Wait for me. I'll call the doctor right away." Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min at this moment opened their eyes and said in unison, "Hyun." As the doctors assisted, Yaoi Shin and Yaoi Min finally woke up and sat up, bringing immense joy and relief to Jin Hyung. They checked on each other, and Yaoi Min examined Yaoi Shin, saying, "Let me check. That's like not having anywhere hurts." Yaoi Min, puzzled, remarked, "Consciousness was severed." Yaoi Shin questioned, "Was it due to a head injury?" Outside the hospital corridor, sudden sounds of footsteps echoed on the ground, as if someone had just run away. The two siblings immediately chased after, thinking it was Jin Hyung. However, Despite turning the hospital upside down and searching every possible path, Jin Hyung was nowhere to be found. Uai Shin said, "He's not here." Uai Min wondered, "Wasn't he still here when we woke up? Did he escape? Why did he leave now?" Uai Shin, worried and sweating, replied, "Does he finally hate us?" Undeterred, the two persisted in their search, with Uai Min firmly stating, "Even so, we won't give up. If he wants to escape, he'll have to wait until death." However, by the end of that day, as Uai Shin and Uai Min returned to the car, they were still anxious and vented their frustration on the steering wheel. "Where is he, after all?" Uai Shin sighed. "We've searched everywhere he could have gone." The two looked at each other and, without planning it, both thought of the same remaining possibility. Shortly after, the two siblings drove back home. Upon arriving home, the house was engulfed in darkness with no lights. However, when they opened the main door, they saw Jin Hyung's shoes there, momentarily lifting the burden off their shoulders. Jin Hyung rushed out from inside, furious, grabbing their clothes and scolding them with frustration. "Why are you so late? Do you not need me anymore? Is that true? Now you two don't need me to distinguish between the two of you anymore." As Jin Hyung poured out these words, it was like a sudden release of all the pent-up emotions of worry and fear within him. The twin siblings were taken aback and asked, "What are you suddenly talking about?" Frustrated, Jin Hyung leaned on them, tears uncontrollably streaming down, choked with emotion, saying, "Both of you and everyone else have finally stopped confusing the two of you." At that moment in the hospital, Jin Hyung overheard Uai Shin and Uai Min saying to each other, "Consciousness has been severed. Is it because of a head injury?" Jin Hyung immediately rushed home, trembling and huddled in a corner with scattered thoughts. "Although I waited for them to wake up, I don't know. It's okay. If I stay home, they will surely come looking for me." However, Jin Hyung didn't expect that the two siblings had been searching for him everywhere until late at night. While he stayed lonely until the end of the day, the entire house immersed in the lonely darkness. At this point, Jin Hyung couldn't contain his emotions and burst into tears, crying out, "Why? Why didn't you come back?" Consequently, Jin Hyung misunderstood that the twin siblings no longer needed him, continuously blaming himself. "So now I've become useless." For the past few days, without letting Jin Hyung continue, the two siblings gently embraced him, saying, "Did you wait for us?" This angry expression is the first time I've seen it. "Tell me, do you need us?" Jin Hyung had long abandoned his guard and rejection, softly wiping away tears and smiling at the two, expressing the feelings in his heart. "I love you both." Jin Hyung now knew that he couldn't live without them. He had satisfied himself to the point of fear, acting like a fool, but now, finally, he had clarity. He no longer needed anyone else. Among the three, with no one able to interfere, the twin siblings and I, that's how we live happily together.